In 1924, the British Mount Everest expedition marked one of the earliest, most ambitious attempts to conquer the world's highest peak. It was an era of exploration defined by courage, primitive equipment, and an unforgiving environment that had already claimed countless lives. The events surrounding this particular journey left behind a legacy of questions and theories that persist to this day. Led by General Charles Bruce, the expedition aimed to achieve what no one had before, reaching the summit of Mount Everest. Among the climbers were George Mallory, a seasoned mountaineer known for his famous remark, "Because it's there," and Andrew "Sandy" Irvine, a young but determined climber. The team's progress captivated the world, with newspapers eagerly reporting every step of their ascent. On June 8, 1924, Mallory and Irvine set off from their last camp to make a final push for the summit. It was the last time they were seen alive. Their climb into the thin, unforgiving air near the top of the world remains one of mountaineering's greatest mysteries. Did they reach the summit before succumbing to the brutal conditions, or did Everest claim them before they could achieve their goal? The search for answers began immediately after their disappearance. When the rest of the team descended, they brought back accounts of the duo's last known position, but little else. The disappearance left the world in suspense, sparking debate and repeated attempts to uncover what happened. For decades, the fate of Mallory and Irvine remained unknown. In 1933, a significant clue emerged. Percy Wynne Harris, part of another Everest expedition, discovered an ice axe on the mountain's northeast ridge. It was later confirmed to belong to one of the missing climbers. The find reignited interest in the mystery, but also deepened the intrigue. Why was the ice axe so far from their presumed route? Did it mark the site of a fall, or had they encountered something that forced them off course? In 1999, another team set out to locate Mallory and Irvine. The American-led search expedition discovered George Mallory's body at 26,760 feet, astonishingly well preserved by the icy conditions. His position suggested a fall, but his body's orientation and injuries raised as many questions as answers. Notably, Mallory's daughter had given him a photograph of his wife, which he intended to leave at the summit. That photograph was never found on his body. Did this mean he had reached the summit and placed it there, or was it lost during his fall? The mystery deepened in 2024 when Irvine's partial remains were discovered by a National Geographic team during a descent of the Rongbuk Glacier on the mountain's north face. This discovery reignited the debate about their final moments. The remains were accompanied by some personal items, though none provided conclusive evidence of whether the summit was reached. The search for Irvine's camera, which could hold photographic proof, continues. Despite the absence of definitive answers, the 1924 expedition left behind more than just questions. Climbers and Sherpas alike have reported unusual occurrences on Everest ever since. Some have claimed to hear voices whispering in the wind, urging them to turn back. Others have spoken of an unshakable feeling of being watched. While modern science attributes these sensations to altitude sickness and oxygen deprivation, they remain a haunting reminder of the perilous nature of Everest. The story of the 1924 expedition is a powerful reminder of the human spirit's resilience and the sacrifices made in the pursuit of discovery. While we may never know if Mallory and Irvine were the first to stand atop the world, their legacy endures. The mountain keeps its secrets, and their journey continues to inspire climbers to this day, even as Everest becomes increasingly crowded with modern adventurers. The memory of Mallory, Irvine, and their ill-fated expedition stands as a testament to a time when exploration was less about personal glory and more about testing the limits of human endurance. The story of the 1924 expedition lingers not just on the slopes of Everest, but in the imaginations of all who dare to dream of reaching the top of the world. Hannelore Schmatz, a 39-year-old German climber, was no stranger to adventure. In 1979, she set her sights on Mount Everest, a towering challenge that few had conquered and even fewer had survived. Alongside her husband, Gerhard, and a small team, she embarked on a journey that would etch her name into the haunting lore of the world's highest peak. On October 2, 1979, Hannelore achieved her dream. She became the fourth woman to summit Mount Everest. But as every climber knows, reaching the top is only half the battle. The descent often proves more perilous, and for Hannelore, it would become an insurmountable challenge. Descending from the summit, the team encountered exhaustion and the biting winds of the death zone, where oxygen levels are dangerously low, and every step is a battle against the body's limits. Hannelore, along with American climber Ray Jennett and Sherpa Sundar, lagged behind. Jennett, severely weakened, collapsed. Despite the perilous conditions, the team stayed with him through the night. Tragically, Jennett succumbed to hypothermia, his body claimed by the unforgiving cold. Hannelore and Sundar pushed on, desperate to descend to safety. Exhausted and disoriented, Hannelore made the fatal decision to rest just below the south summit, at an altitude of around 8,300 meters. Sundar begged her to continue, knowing that stopping in the death zone was a death sentence. But Hannelore insisted, too drained to take another step. Sundar reluctantly left to seek help, leaving her alone in the freezing winds. Hannelore's body soon succumbed to the cold. Her life ended not with a dramatic fall or a roaring avalanche, but in eerie silence, surrounded by the vast, icy emptiness of Everest. For years, Hannelore's body remained exactly where she died, becoming a grim landmark for climbers. Resting upright, her back against her backpack, she seemed to stare out across the mountainside with haunting eyes frozen open. Her hair, untouched by time, blew gently in the relentless Himalayan winds. Her presence was a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of Everest. Climbers who passed by her body reported an overwhelming sense of unease. For some, it was the lifelike quality of her frozen gaze. For others, it was the realization that they could meet the same fate. Despite the deep respect for her legacy, few dared to approach or attempt to move her body. In 1984, Sherpa Sundar, who had survived that tragic night, returned to the mountain in an attempt to recover Hannelore's body. However, while attempting to lower her remains down the slope, the ropes snapped and her body slipped into a crevasse, vanishing into the icy depths of Everest. Hannelore Schmatz's story remains one of the most haunting tragedies of Everest. Her frozen gaze became part of the mountain's mythology, a symbol of both the triumphs and the terrifying costs of human ambition. Climbers who reach the death zone are often mourned of her story, a cautionary tale about the thin line between success and disaster on the world's highest peak. Today, Hannelore's body may be hidden from view, but her memory endures as a chilling reminder that Everest spares no one, not even the most determined adventurers. In May 1998, Frances Arsentiev, an American climber, set out with her husband, Sergei, to achieve an extraordinary feat, summiting Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen. It was a goal fraught with immense challenges, but the couple, experienced climbers and partners in adventure, were determined to succeed. After several days of grueling effort, Frances and Sergei reached the summit of Everest on May 22, 1998. However, their triumph would soon give way to tragedy. The lack of oxygen, the bitter cold, and the immense physical toll of the climb combined to push the couple into a life-and-death struggle during their descent. Frances began to struggle almost immediately. The combination of exhaustion, frostbite, and oxygen deprivation left her disoriented and unable to keep pace with Sergei. The couple became separated in the death zone, where survival without supplemental oxygen is perilous. Sergei, realizing his wife was in danger, turned back to search for her, abandoning his descent and putting his own life at risk. Frances was eventually spotted by a group of Uzbek climbers on May 23. They found her near the summit, alive but severely frostbitten and barely conscious. Unable to move or speak coherently, She clung to life on the freezing slope. The climbers did what they could to help her, but were forced to leave her behind due to the deteriorating weather and their own critical need to descend. Meanwhile, Sergei, who had gone back up to find his wife, disappeared. Days later, his ice axe and rope were discovered near a cliff face, suggesting he had fallen to his death in his desperate attempt to save Frances. Frances remained in the same spot for hours, slowly succumbing to the brutal cold and lack of oxygen. Other climbers later encountered her body on their way to the summit, sitting upright and dressed in her bright climbing gear. She became an enduring and haunting figure on Everest, known as the Sleeping Beauty, due to her peaceful appearance in death. For nearly 9 years, Frances' body remained a tragic marker on the mountain, a silent reminder of the perils of extreme ambition. In 2007, climber Ian Woodall, moved by her story, organized an expedition to bury her. Alongside fellow climbers, he performed a ceremony and moved her body off the trail to a less visible location, granting her a final moment of dignity. Frances and Sergei's story is one of love, determination, and sacrifice. Their pursuit of a dream led them to the top of the world, but ultimately cost them their lives, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire both caution and respect among climbers who dare to challenge the unforgiving heights of Mount Everest.